What's up guys, Enrique here, and today I have the Launchpad in another Asking for a Friend video. So today I'm going to show you what the Launchpad really does. Cool, so let's get into it. Alright, so again, just to touch on some basics of what the Launchpad really is and what it does is, this is of course the grid. Along the top and the side here, you have additional controls for Ableton, which is cool. But I guess where the main focus for a majority of performances and just kind of playing sounds is you're going to focus on the grid. Alright, so we have the Launchpad here. We connected it with the USB into the laptop. And to make this setup as simple as possible, I'm running this output to just my audio recorder. I'm not using an audio interface or anything. Some people, when they first get this, they may not have that, and that's totally fine. I mean, a lot of people say you shouldn't go without an audio interface, but honestly, there are no rules when it comes to making music. Make music in whatever way you can. People have made the greatest music with the smallest amount of stuff. Anyway, that's an entire different topic. First, what you're going to want to do is on the screen, you're going to open up your Ableton Live. I'm going to be using Ableton Live 9 Suite. Some people can use Ableton Live 9 Lite. It all works the same. I'm going to open up my Ableton Live, and once it opens up, we'll see what we're working with. First thing you should notice is when Ableton turns on, these should light up on the top. You can see here, basically showing that in Ableton, it's reading. And on top of that, inside Ableton, you can see this yellow box right here showing you what the grid is currently showing. So once there's clips in here, which we'll get to, there will be lights that show up here on the grid. If for whatever reason this isn't lighting up the way I just said, make sure to check your preferences settings for the Launchpad. So go to Live up on the top, Preferences, and then go to your link and MIDI and make sure that the Launchpad MK2 is set up as a control surface. Launchpad MK2, Launchpad MK2, Launchpad MK2 for the input and output. As far as it goes for the inputs and the outputs down here, you want to make sure that track and remote are on for the input of the Launchpad Mark II, and the output goes to the Launchpad Mark II. All three of them are on. And this stuff just kind of helps read back and forth between each other and helps them communicate. Okay, so in its simplest terms of what the Launchpad is doing within Ableton is it's not necessarily loading sounds into the Launchpad as much as it is triggering sounds inside of Ableton. So with that being said, we look here, when you first open up Ableton, it's going to have two MIDI tracks, right? And two audio tracks. It should look a little something more like this. We got two MIDI on the left and two audio on the right. For right now, in the first part, we're just going to focus on the audio tracks. What the audio tracks allow you to do is load sounds within the grid here, and that same grid is represented here on the Launchpad itself. So check this out. If I hit samples down here in the categories, it brings up a ton of different sounds that we can choose from. But if you don't have these sounds here or don't find any you like, make sure to check out the included software that comes with this. It's 4 gigs of Loop Master samples, and within those are pretty good. For example, I have them here on my desktop. I added this folder, have the Loop Masters open right here. I can easily open this up and look at all these tons of samples. It's 4 gigs. It's more than anybody ever really needs. I always find less is more, but that's a conversation for a different time. Anyway, let's go ahead and focus on some of the loops that we can add. So let's say SMD wave loop. Let's find an atmosphere one. This one's cool. So I'm going to click it and drag it over into one of the audio slots. And as soon as I do that, you can see that it creates a red clip. Within that red clip, you can easily change the color of it. Right click it, hit blue. Now it's baby blue. You can maybe want it green. Easily select green. It's now kind of, oh, I selected teal. Sorry about that, color blind. Let's see, let's choose this green. Now you can see it's green. So the cool thing here is I can then press this square or this pad and it'll launch the loop. I can press the one below it that has a little stop sign on there and it'll stop it in time. You can see that it doesn't stop the playback though, but that's okay. So I'm going to hit spacebar, or you can just hit the stop button itself and it'll stop playback. Where this is cool is we can find another sound, maybe that one, click and drag below it. And you can see that it's red. So we have a green clip that we had, and now the red one. So we can play the first one and then play the second one in time. If we put the metronome on here, and then it'll change now. It'll even stop it in time. It's one of the awesome features about Ableton. It's really, really powerful for what it can do. So this is a fun way. You can even then start maybe finding a drum loop. Let's see, they got waves. Let's go to drum. This one's cool. So let's click and drag that over into the next audio file, or the next audio track, sorry. Here, let's color it magenta, I think that's what that color is. Anyway, if I press that, it'll launch the drum loop. And then now I can launch one of the pad loops that we had here assigned, and it'll launch it in time. So check this out. Maybe launch the next one, go back. Maybe just stop the drums by clicking one of the blank ones. Or launch them both together. Or stop them together. So this is really basics of how to get sounds on your grid that you can control from your grid in Ableton. Just make sure that they're an audio track, not the MIDI track. But the MIDI tracks aren't to be forgotten. They're really, really cool. So where this is kind of cool is I can go into Instruments and select a drum rack, right? If I open up drum rack and drag it over onto any of the available MIDI slots, for example MIDI 1, you can see right away that it enables the recording of that, which turns this pad's red, showing me that, hey, if you press this, it's going to start recording a new clip in Ableton. Right now I don't want to do that. What you want to focus on down here is the grid that it just created. So in a weird way, it's kind of Inception style, where it puts a grid inside of a grid, and it can get not too confusing, but it's really simple. It's just a great way to organize all of your samples down into one track. So with that being said, we can then go back to our samples that we have here. Let's go to drum sounds. Let's go to sounds and effects. Drum hits, and we can select a couple, or if we really want, we can just hold down Shift on the keyboard, click down at the bottom, select them all, click and drag onto the grid, and you can see that the orange squares light up, showing us where the samples will be placed. So if I let go, boom, now all our samples are in here, and we can press play on each individual sample and hear them back. Where this is cool is, if this is still record enabled, this little red circle down here, if you hit user 1 on the Launchpad, it takes you to the mode of playing that grid. So you can see, if you look back at the screen while I do this, you can see the little play button lighting up, which is awesome. And it goes from left to right in groups of 4, and then from the top, it'll jump back down to the bottom. For example, you can see here that D2 or D flat or sharp 2, sorry, doesn't have a sound on it, which will then be this button here. If I press that, you can see that it goes to that sound, but there's nothing there. If I hit this sound, it'll bring that sound up. Maybe this sound. You can then, even inside of here, change the way it sounds, the way it's going to be played back, its transposition, how many voices it is. You can go so crazy with this thing. It's really fun. For example, transposition is my favorite. This will just change the pitch. Maybe you want it higher. So this is a cool way to just kind of, jam around. So these are just the basics of getting started and putting sounds in Ableton on the Launchpad. Again, it's important to remember that you're not actually loading sounds onto the Launchpad itself, but you're adding sounds within Ableton's grid or MIDI instruments and then playing them using the Launchpad. So if you liked this video and it helped, I really appreciate it if you can hit the like button down below. As always, if you have any questions or comments, leave them down in the comment section below. Share the love, share the knowledge. Knowledge is power. Peace.